Are you struggling with anything that you need advice on? Update to husband has secret conversations with a teenager. If you recall, my husband has been chatting to a girl for months behind my back. We are around 40 and she is a teenager. I really didn't know how to make sense of this situation, and he's never done anything to make me suspect he was not being faithful to me. See, link 1 in description. Here is the update. I'm going to keep this brief. Unfortunately, there's some things I won't be able to get into because of privacy concerns, and some things my husband didn't elaborate on. My husband got an email from this girl alleging to be his half-sister. He hasn't spoken to his father since his parents got divorced, but his father, who passed away, appears to have been in a relationship with another woman years later and had another child. Some of the information this girl gave him during their initial email exchanges, there were a couple of video calls as well, made him suspicious of her mother's intentions. My husband did some digging around, and although he's convinced she really is his half-sister, he's weary of her mother. Also, her mother's boyfriend who appear to be in a very bad debt situation and has been pushing her to connect with my husband. I'm still kind of mad that he didn't share this with me, but he's adamant he didn't want to pull me into this before he could figure out what the situation is. There's obviously been a lot of questions about the fake Facebook account. I didn't ask him about it, but it's the least of my concerns at the moment, and I honestly don't care at all if anyone thinks this is real or not. My husband is very excited to have a kid sister. He was beaming the whole time he spoke about her last night. From our conversation, it's clear that he's trying to bond with her without putting us or her in a compromising situation. There's some crucial details I'm leaving out here about her home life, but it's private, and not really something I feel should be shared. And can everyone please stop with the sex thing? It's my fault for not being clear about it, but there was no sex talk of any kind. My husband just redirected the conversation when the topic started getting sex related. Am I the unreasonable one for not letting my sister and brother-in-law sleep in my room instead of the living room? My sister, brother-in-law, and their son moved in with me due to financial issues. They have been here for around a month now. I only have a 2-bedroom place though, so my sister and brother-in-law have been bunking down in our living room, and their son is staying in my son's room. They've insisted we could change the sleeping arrangements, so they, sister and brother-in-law, get one of the bedrooms, and the boys stay in the living room. She said she and her husband were having problems because they never have any privacy for just the two of them. I said no to that because my son, who is autistic, needs to keep his sleeping arrangements and space the same, otherwise he will have a meltdown, and I'll have a hard time getting him to bed. My sister understood that, and then asked if I could stay in the living room then. She thinks it makes more sense for the single person to sleep in the living room instead of the couple who could share a bed. And yeah, from a neutral point of view it makes more sense. But come on, this is my home. I want to keep my private area to myself in my home. It's already driving me crazy having them here all the time. It's only going to be worse if I don't have some place to retreat to. I also don't want to have to sleep on a couch or air mattress in my home. I want to sleep in my bed where I won't wake up with a backache. Also, let's be real, I don't want my sister having sex in my bed. If I had a guest room I wouldn't care, but them being in my own personal bed just makes me uncomfortable. Like, I totally get that not having privacy and not being able to have sex sucks for them, but I don't think that should affect me. So, I told her no to that too, and now my sister and brother-in-law are basically giving me the silent treatment. They're also both getting snippy with each other and arguing in hushed tones. Am I the unreasonable one for refusing to hand over my phone to a stranger? I, 17 female, was babysitting for a neighbor, Jane, tonight. She had heard of me through a friend of hers, Kate, who is someone I babysit for regularly, so when Kate asked me to babysit for Jane, and gave glowing recommendations of how lovely Jane was to me, I'm quite shy, and how good I was to Jane, I thought sure, I enjoy babysitting, love kids, etc., why not? My mother took me over to Jane's house, introduced herself, gave Jane her number, and left once she saw that there were actually kids there, that Jane and her husband Peter were getting ready to leave, that it was legit basically. Jane and Peter left, and I babysit the kids who were cool kids. I watch a movie, clean up the mess we had made in the kitchen. Spaghetti with toddlers is a nightmare, and chill on my phone. Nothing I do on my phone while I am at Jane's is anything near inappropriate. I do have a lockable folder with some inappropriate things on there, aka anime and manga that are definitely not G-rated, but don't touch that folder at all while I'm there. Jane comes home at 10 p.m., checks on the kids, checks out the house, and as I'm waiting to be paid, she turns to me and says, "Before I pay you, I need to look at your phone. I want to make sure that you didn't take photos of my house or my kids or look at anything rude." I asked her whether she means she wants to look at my iPhone's camera roll, and she shakes her head. "No, I want to quickly check your Facebook, your messages and whatever other apps you have to double check. I obviously say no, and Jane tells me that she will not be paying me. I call my mother and she quickly comes down. She looks at my phone herself, tells Jane there is nothing on there concerning her and to pay me now please. Jane pays me and informs me I will not be asked back, and that she will be telling Kate that I was not a good babysitter. My mother replies that she will be also talking to Kate about her choice of good friends, and we leave. Then, Jane made a post on our neighborhood community page on Facebook talking about bad babysitters who couldn't accept the parents' rules they had for babysitting, and still demanded to be paid, and was offering to PM people more details. Someone else screenshotted their conversation where, although she didn't name me, she named the exact situation, and Jane got over 100 comments talking about how that was her right as a parent and homeowner and whatnot to check that her children were not harmed while left with a babysitter, and the fact that I refused means I obviously did something wrong. Am I the unreasonable one? Am I the unreasonable one for asking a pregnant woman to get out of our forum for women who can't have children? I'm the mod of a forum for women who can't have children and have been so for the past 7 years. On this forum there's a subgroup of around 20 women, all mid-30s to mid-50s, who have been on there for over 10 plus years, and we are very close. I consider all of them close personal friends. We've gone through very horrible times together, from first realizing we won't be able to have children, to accepting this, to dealing with friends and family etc. 3 years ago one of our members died from MS, and we've been even closer ever since. So here's the deal, at the beginning of March one of our members, let's call her Mary, 47, suddenly announced that she and her husband found a surrogate, and that they were having a baby. Now mind you Mary has been one of the longest members of the forum, and has told us in detail why a surrogate wouldn't work etc. So we were all beyond baffled, but of course, we were primarily very happy for her. The new problem consists of the fact that I've been approached by several members telling me they are uncomfortable with Mary still being in the group because even though she tries not to, she constantly brings up the fact that she is about to be a mother while all of us are suffering from the fact that we never will be. Of course, this is the biggest event in Mary's life and I understand why she can't stop talking about it. It's completely understandable. We are all friends, and the group has evolved over the years, but its main reason for existing is still the fact that none of us can have children, and that is its main purpose. That is the main thing we talk about. I've asked Mary to please not talk about it so much, and while she seemed hurt, she promised she would tone it down. Well, she hasn't. In the last week she's talked about the pregnancy, the surrogate, all the items they've bought, how excited her family is, how her mother cried when she told her etc. All of it makes us incredibly upset. Yesterday, I told her that either she stopped talking about it, or I would have to ban her from the group, and she got very angry and made a huge post in our group, accusing us all of not being happy for her, not being able to jump over our own shadows etc. I think she wants to keep us as friends, but not have to deal with the reason why we became friends in the first place. I personally think she doesn't really have a place in our group anymore. The group is very divided over this, and I've gotten more angry calls in the last 24 hours than I ever have in my entire life before that. However, there are also a whole group of women agreeing with me. I'm trying to keep the peace, but at this point it doesn't seem possible. So, am I the unreasonable one? Update. For anyone that cares, I've not really been a part of the group anymore for the past several weeks because the stress has been too much and I have to deal with more important things. I made another woman in our group the new mod, but from what she's told me, nothing much has changed in the group apart from the fact that Mary has toned down her baby talk a lot. Apparently other women talked to her as well, and she realized that what she did was really unfair to the rest of us. Personally I've not talked to Mary since the whole deal, but I suspect we'll talk again sooner rather than later since I don't have much time left on this earth. Would it be unreasonable for cutting off my mother because she tried to make me talk to my ex? My ex and I split when our son was a year old. I have majority custody of our now 6-year-old, and my ex only has alternate weekends due to failure to show at the meeting where we were meant to agree on custody. My boyfriend of 4 years proposed 3 months ago, and a month later we posted about it on social media to inform anyone who hadn't already been told. My ex contacted me privately saying he wanted to check him out before he becomes our son's stepdad. They've met, but it's always been a 10 seconds thing as he picks up and drops off our son, so my boyfriend said they could talk properly over video chat. He decided to record before going on, and he was right too, as my ex says in the recording that a kid needs bio parents, not step, and that my boyfriend should bow out so my ex can step in, and try, and get back with me, and hinted that if he wouldn't do that he'd go for full custody. My boyfriend ended the call, and showed me the recording. I've consulted my lawyer every step of the way, I've kept logs of weekends he hasn't shown and screenshots of his explanations, and my lawyer has a copy of the recording. She said there's not enough for any further action as of right now, but if anything happens we can probably do something with the evidence I've given her. She gave me a template of what to say to my ex. I sent the template to my ex. It said that I knew what he'd said to my boyfriend, and that while he was still welcome to have his weekends with our son, I didn't want to interact with him. I don't want him talking to my boyfriend like that, and he could contact me by texting my phone, but I'd be blocking him on social media. My ex replied that's fair, he understands, and he'll respect my wishes. Today I took my son to visit my parents. Fiancé is working. My parents are aware of what happened with my ex. Haven't seen my parents since Christmas, and now we're safe to see them, so we took the opportunity. Dad answered the door and whispered, your mom invited X. She wants you to talk. I told her no, but he's here. My son and I got back into the car and left. And I turned my phone on. I always have it off while driving, and I've received nearly 30 calls in the 3 hours I was driving, all from Mom, saying leaving was immature and escalating to her literally crying because she's not seen my son and I in about 6 months. I called her and said she had no right to do that, and I had half a mind to cut contact with her because I don't need people I can trust in my life. This didn't exactly cheer her up, and while my fiancé agrees that that was a stupid thing for her to do, and he no longer trusts her, my dad, who has been on my side up until now, has said that if I'm cutting contact with Mom then he's cutting contact with me and saying that she went too far, but I'm going overboard. Would it be unreasonable for cutting Mom off? More info. Mom is a big believer in the regular family dynamic of two married parents, and no step-parents, step-siblings and half-siblings. My fiancé and I are planning on having 1 or 2 more after marriage, and therefore Mom dislikes my fiancé as she, like my ex, feels that my fiancé is the only thing stopping me and my ex from getting back together. He's really not. Mom has tried to get me to get back with my ex before now, and I've told her to leave off every time. My dad posted about my abuse on Facebook. I'm still processing this one and wondering if I'm the one who's wrong. My family cares. I'm close with my brother and sister. I'm close-ish with my mom and dad. I'm 23 and female. We all like each other and see each other often. My relationship with my parents is weird and a little strained, but generally okay. The only thing is my parents are a bit overbearing. They showed us a lot of bad habits. They both had very bad childhoods. My mother's side plagued with addiction and poverty. My father's much the same, plus physical abuse. Nice people, but anxious and sheltered people all the same. They make great livings and are generous with us. Since they grew up so poor, they have ferocious work ethics. They like to make money. They like to work hard. Our house was often very messy. There were a lot of very intense fights between my parents, and we were often left to fend for ourselves while parents worked long hours, and then recouped. We were not an affectionate family until we all reached adulthood. Recently, I fell into an abusive relationship. Much the same as my parents, I thought the cycle of anger and yelling at me was normal in a relationship. Then, the hitting started and I hid that because I was scared. I kind of stopped seeing my family altogether. On Christmas, I was brutally battered and fled to my parents' house. They called 911 and were furious. My mom took me to make a report and yelled at me the whole way for not coming forward sooner. I got home that night to find that my father had posted a picture of my ex-boyfriend, and let everyone know I had been beaten by this person. Absolutely mortifying. He wouldn't delete it, so I had to report it. All these random people were sharing it. Throughout the next few weeks, everyone was mostly concerned with how they felt about what happened to me. I was moving on and healing, and they were constantly questioning and harassing me. If I didn't answer the phone for 2 minutes, I was assumed dead and a panic would ensue. I didn't want to testify against my abuser, and that caused even more issues, even though I explained it was to prevent reopening of trauma plus would trigger my anxiety, a disorder I had before any of this even happened. Because I wouldn't do exactly what they wanted to in the wake of an incident that happened to me, I was told I was stupid, a bad daughter, and accepting the abuse I was handed. Things have repaired, but I still feel uncomfortable with everything. I don't feel very close with them because I didn't feel anyone actually cared about how I was doing. I don't know how to proceed. I have my sister's wedding to Copland, and I'm moving within the next few weeks. I really could use more familial support, but I don't feel comfortable. Any advice or thoughts would be welcomed. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.